Number 10. Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan has always divided TV audiences, but he gained new notoriety after taking on the Duchess of Sussex. The host of Good Morning Britain abruptly left the show from broadcaster ITV after questioning whether Meghan Markle was being truthful when she told Oprah Winfrey that she had dark thoughts of self-harm before stepping back from her duties as a member of the royal family. Morgan's comments sparked a backlash and triggered an investigation by Ofcom, the country's media regulator, which received a record 57,100 complaints about his remarks. Despite leaving the show just drenched in shame, he did try to keep his career going by moving to another news source, only that one's more like one of those online news sources, you know the ones I'm talking about. Number 9. Chris Harrison. Chris was a longtime host of the popular reality show The Bachelor and its female counterpart The Bachelorette. Chris was forced to permanently exit the show after coming under fire earlier this year for defending a contestant's past racist behavior. Harrison, who has hosted the popular franchise for almost 20 years, stepped aside from his role in February after he defended former Bachelor contestant Rachel Kirkconnell, who was shown in photos attending an antebellum plantation-themed fraternity formal in 2018. Harrison made the comments defending Kirkconnell during an extra interview with former Bachelorette Rachel Lindsay. In his interview with Lindsay, Harrison expressed sympathy for Kirkconnell and implied that the criticism directed against her was unfair because the photos were from the past. When Lindsay said it was not a good look that Kirkconnell attended a party celebrating the antebellum South, a time period when slavery was still present, Harrison said, "Well, Rachel, is it a good look in 2018 or is it not a good look in 2021? Because there's a big difference." Hey Chris, yeah, it's not a good look ever. He later admitted he made a mistake and that he was seeking guidance from a race educator and strategist, which I'm not really sure what that person does. Alright, here's how we're not gonna be racist today. Number 8. Bill Maher. Bill has always been a man of controversy, literally hosting a show called Politically Incorrect for years before being cancelled in the early 2000s. He's since gone on to host his own show again called Real Time with Bill Maher, a show that may finally be getting the cancellation treatment thanks to Bill just being an absolute menace to society. Bill has shared a few controversial opinions on his talk show, but he's also spouted some pretty rough language saying words that nobody should ever say, especially the N-word, which he just casually threw around during a live exchange with the Senator of Nebraska, Ben Sasse, in 2017. He was immediately called out by millions of people begging for the cancellation of his show on HBO, but instead of canceling the show, HBO released a statement claiming that his language was inexcusable and tasteless, and then they just removed the word from the edited version. While his career as a talk show host hasn't really suffered, and there's plenty of terrible people to interview, his career as a comedian has gone nowhere but down the drain. Number 7. Joe Rogan. Joe was once the host of one of the most intense reality game shows of all time, Fear Factor. Right? Just mentioning that name makes me feel like I've got cockroaches crawling all around me. Seriously, whose idea was that? Eventually, Joe moved on from the world of live game shows and moved to live gladiator fights, aka UFC. As a sports commentator, Joe has been adored by fans, becoming a staple in the world of ultimate fighting. However, he also decided it would be an epic idea to start a podcast and invite everyone and anyone under the sun, including several fake doctors and media men, to spread lies to the world while fueling Joe's tiny ego. To make everything worse, Joe decided that since it was his show, he could say whatever he wanted, defending the situation surrounding the show's so-called misinformation. He is also one of those people who just casually likes to throw around the N-word when he feels like it's necessary. After saying too much on several episodes, Joe's career has been cemented as podcast host from now on. Like, if this man ever tries to rise, he's gonna fall hard into a pit of animal entrails. Seriously, why was Fear Factor a thing? Number 6. Sharon Osbourne. 2 years ago on the popular talk show The Talk, host Cheryl Underwood and Sharon Osbourne began to discuss the topic of racism amongst the recent firing of Sharon's personal friend Piers Morgan, also on this list, from Good Morning Britain over all the comments he made about the Duchess of Sussex. Sharon went off and began aggressively defending her friend, asking Cheryl what Piers said specifically that was racist. She then went on to say that she was being put into an electric chair, and due to her connection to Piers that she herself must also be racist. She went on to clarify that she did not support his comments per se, but that she did support his right to free speech. But like, he used that free speech to say messed up stuff, so maybe don't support him. She then asked Cheryl over and over again how she herself could be so racist. What has she done? What has she said? Well, Cheryl then signed off for a commercial break before Sharon let out some pretty choice expletives. When they returned, the tension almost seemed worse and the conversation continued to escalate. Eventually, Underwood was able to get her point across and calm Sharon down. However, the damage was done, and the internet called for her immediate removal from the show. Number 5. James Corden. In one of the show's more popular bits, The Late Late Show had the Late Late lie detector. Corden asks his guests to hook up to a lie detector test and answer a series of questions on the air. During one segment of this bit, in which guest Kris Jenner was hooked up to the line, she was asked about her involvement in producing a certain tape with Kim. You know what I'm talking about. She was quick to roll her eyes and shake her head and say, "Oh no, no, no." And then the expert said, "True. Case closed." Nope, not even close, because the next day Kim Kardashian's ex-boyfriend Ray J blasted the show, calling the segment fake and claiming that the man giving the test, John, was underqualified. Going on to call the network sad for allowing this segment to be aired and threatening to sue Corden and the show itself. A little digging was done and it turned out that there was some truth to these claims, as John's LinkedIn profile revealed that he had attended an unspecified number of lie detector academies, which sounds super made up. It also said that he had a bachelor in law, but that he didn't actually really finish the course. Whether it was this moment or one of the many missteps in James's show's history, the entire thing got canceled and James is a liar stuck looking for work. Number 4. Ellen DeGeneres. Ellen had one of the most successful daytime talk shows of all time until 2020. Her show became overwhelmed with accusations of toxic work environment from former employees. They were claiming that Ellen's happy exterior was nothing more than a fake facade put in place to keep the audience on her team. A small bit of proof came when she accused 50 Shades of Grey actress Dakota Johnson of not inviting her to a birthday party a few months prior. Dakota reminded her that she had in fact sent an invitation but received a notice from producers that she did not want to attend. Fans began questioning this awkward moment and the cracks in her appearance started getting bigger and bigger. Eventually, an article was released containing testimonies from several former employees, and there were just too many stories for this thing to be made up. Ellen canceled herself by denying every single thing that she was being accused of, and instead of acknowledging her faults and missteps as a boss, she didn't respond as you may think with like a public apology though. Instead, she was forced to cancel both herself and her show amid the controversy and has since been on a hiatus. Number 3. Howard Stern. Stern may have just been one of the best talk show guests in the 1990s and the early 2000s. While he's still stellar when he actually allows someone to interview him, he particularly rocked it when he was at his most outrageous. This is because he'd come on and just take over. For instance, his favorite guy was Jay Leno. Today we're going to talk about one instance specifically on the Jay Leno show. Jay sat back as one of his guests attacked Howard's longtime co-host Robin Quivers during a segment on his show for her allegiance with the shock jock. Not only did this anger Robin, but Howard was irritated. Howard has accused Jay Leno of stealing his bits from his radio show, as well as a host of other problems. In fact, he has publicly called Jay a crook numerous times, even on his own talk show, which is kind of what landed him on this list, and his hatred for such a universally loved man most certainly made an impact on his status as a radio celebrity. He still has a podcast to this day, but thanks to him sitting behind the microphone all the time, the world just kind of moved on. Number 2. Charlie Sheen. Charlie rose to fame in the early 80s after starring in a slew of cult classic flicks like Red Dawn, The Boys Next Door, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off in a brief but memorable cameo. He fell into the mainstream in 2003 when he began playing the character Charlie Harper in the hit sitcom 2.5 Men. It was so good that even just mentioning it got that theme song stuck in your head. Anyway, sorry. However, in 2009 he was arrested for attempting to harm his wife Brooke Mueller on several occasions, and at the time of the arrest both parties had been indulging in adult beverages, with Sheen becoming enraged beyond control. Following this, a restraining order was placed prohibiting Sheen from being within 100 feet of both Brooke and their kids. Despite all the controversy, Charlie was later seen doing press for an upcoming movie on the Today Show when the interviewer asked Charlie what was behind his sudden behavior, claiming that he was being perceived as an angry and erratic man. Sheen responded with, No, it's my passion," before he launched into a no snow-fueled tirade. He claimed his brain functioned within a separate realm to ours. Charlie's interview was defensive to say the least, with his energy just being weird and aggressive the entire time. Ever since then, Charlie has maintained a strange air of arrogancy towards himself because he still thinks he's the king of TV and like winning, when in reality this is probably the first time you've heard about him in a while. And at number 1, Tom Cruise. Now, it's one thing to be asking people to join your church all the time, whatever, it's not a big deal, but Tom's behavior as a member of society has been rough tough to say the least. Following the announcement that he was engaged to Katie Holmes in the early 2000s, Tom appeared on an episode of The Oprah Winfrey Show that has gone down in history as one of the most chaotic TV interviews of all time. From the moment he walks on stage, he has this strange energy. He's oddly excited, like he just got told the best news in his entire life. He throws his arms up in the air, he rubs Oprah's shoulder like she's a lamp and he's trying to summon a genie. Tom jumped up on her couch, grabbed her hands over and over again. She couldn't even get her questions out that she had for him because he was just being so chaotic. Eventually, Oprah was like, whatever, just bring Katie out. And then the cameras followed Tom as he ran around the studio all Paranormal Activity style. The moment cemented Tom as a man with many hidden personalities. And while it hasn't really affected his work as an actor, ever since that day, whenever he is brought in for press or any kind of interviews, all entrances and exits must be locked at all times.
Number 10. Megan Fox. Megan has been featured in several films over the years, but it was an interview about her time working with Michael Bay on the set of the Transformers movies that canceled her career for good. The original live-action Transformers movie came out in 2007 and co-starred Megan and Shia LaBeouf in the leading roles. It was a fun movie on screen, but behind the scenes there was a ton of tension on set. According to Megan, who had previously worked with Michael on Bad Boys 2, working for Michael was like working for Schmittler. Fun fact, if you add sh to someone's name, you can say it online. Loophole. Of course, Michael didn't appreciate being compared to, one of the worst men in human history, so many speculated that her being left out of third Transformers movie may have had something to do with behind-the-scenes drama. She went on to call him bland and claimed that he had no personality or social skills of any kind. Hey Megan, that's just a little bit harsh. It's a little personal. When the comments were made public, her career began to slowly suffer. Not only was she written out of the Transformers series, but she was forced to make a public apology and actually retract her statements following the massive slew of backlash from fans. She took a few years off, but Michael himself later acknowledged the misstep on Megan's part and not only accepted the retraction, but the pair were able to patch things up and work together on the live-action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies from 2014. Yay! Number 9. Cara Delevingne. Cara is a gifted actor and overall seems like a solid human being. So much like the rest of us, she gets tired and annoyed from time to time. Unfortunately, that feeling took place on live TV while promoting her new movie, Paper Towns. While making an appearance on the early morning show, Good Day Sacramento, the interview did not get off to a great start. The program's anchor called her Carla, and she then spent the next few minutes trying to get info out of Cara, but was failing miserably. Falling deep into the anchor role, she pulled out the old, "Hey, wow, that's amazing. Hey, listen, Carla, did you read the book that this thing's based on, or did you even have time to read because you're so busy?" She was having none of that. She was very sarcastic with each answer to the fairly generic questions. Do you relate to the character? What was your favorite moment? Blah, blah, blah. It was then that a third anchor abruptly popped in and asked Cara if she was exhausted, as she seemed a bit more excited to speak about the project a few weeks prior in London. She giggled and said, "No, I'm fine." Apparently, the premiere of the film was the night before, which she claimed to feel like the end of an era. But the anchors do not know when to quit. In fact, one of the anchors then suggested that she may be irritated, or maybe it was just them. They then cut the interview short and told her to take a nap and get a Red Bull. She can be heard saying, "Oh my god, too far," before the news anchor screeches over her and shuts her down. According to Cara, there was really no bad blood. She was just sick of answering the same questions over and over again. Following the interview, the man who popped up and gave his 2 cents was fired for causing such a tense situation on live TV. Number 8. Mike Tyson. Now, I had trouble landing on just one interview to mention when it comes to Mike. He's someone who seems to bounce back even after the most heinous of controversies, so we're just gonna run down through a few good ones. The first time Mike really hurt his career was in the late 80s, and it wasn't even something that he said. He was doing an interview with his then girlfriend Robin Gibbs when the topic of Mike's behavior came up. She said herself that Mike had an extremely volatile temper, and recently reports had surfaced of Mike getting loud and physical with her. Something she seemingly confirmed while Mike was just staring the interviewer down the entire time. Very intense. That was the first little notch on his belt, but as the years went by, more and more controversy came to light. During a press tour for his latest bout in the early 2000s, he lashed out at a fan in the crowd, hurling a slew of insults at him and calling them the British word for cancer sticks. It starts with an F and it rhymes with maggot. The clip became viral overnight and placed his career even further into jeopardy than it already was. But he finally drove the nail into the coffin on CP24 breakfast television in 2014. After somehow maintaining enough relevance to get a one-man show, Mike was sitting down with host Nathan Downer to promote when the interview took a hard left and went from, "So, what's the show about?" to, "So, should you even be allowed on stage, you monster?" That's not what he actually said, but that's what Mike heard. He stopped answering the questions honestly and he would instead hurl insults sarcastically. The F word is once again his favorite. I don't know if you've noticed, but Mike hasn't been on the news much since that day, and for very good reasons. Number 7. Rachel Zegler. Rachel Zegler's comments about the upcoming live-action Snow White remake could have a huge impact on ticket sales, according to branding experts. The 22-year-old actress has received plenty of backlash after she admitted that she hated the original 1937 movie and branded the storyline weird, while referring to the Prince character as just a straight-up stalker. The backlash occurred after several videos of Rachel speaking negatively about the original film in various interviews last year resurfaced online, where she talked about her version of the character. She said she's not going to be saved by the Prince and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. While Disney may just be trying to modernize the classic, the comments were causing her to be labeled a fake feminist, with some critics accusing Rachel of gaslighting, and one marketing consultant has warned that Disney will need to be careful on how they have portrayed Snow White. Snow White has already been suffering from backlash well before Rachel made her comments. Peter Dinklage spoke out about Disney not using dwarf actors for the new film, instead opting to use heavy CGI on Hollywood elites. Rachel's role as Snow White is currently up in the air, because while the film is set to be released in March of next year, the writer's strike may be the exact situation that the studio needs to recast and rewrite its oldest character. Number 6. Liam Neeson. Liam may have spent a long time as a dramatic action star, but his most dramatic moment yet came during an interview published by The Independent. He was promoting his new film, Cold Pursuit, which follows his character seeking retribution after his son is slain. When he was asked how his character turns to anger, he replied by telling them something primal kicks in when someone close to you is a victim of violence. He then shared a true story about a close friend of his admitting to a physical altercation with another man a few years prior. When he heard the news, he said something took over him. When he asked her if she knew what his name was, she said no, but she knew what color his skin was. After using some very offensive language to describe this man, Liam then admitted to spending the next week carrying around a small baton and praying that, quote, a random black man would cross his path. The article began circulating fast, and Liam received a tidal wave of backlash. Since 2019, he has starred in a few films, but nothing as high budget or universally liked as his previous roles. Number 5. Katherine Heigl. Kathy was riding high back in 2007. The former Grey's Anatomy star not only won an Emmy for Best Supporting Actress in a Dramatic Series, but she also began transitioning into the big screen with the success of her first feature comedy, Knocked Up, alongside comedy legend Seth Rogen. Unfortunately, her rise to the top quickly became a free fall into a volcano following an ill-fated Vanity Fair interview the following January. In the interview, Katherine made a move that still has people scratching their heads to this day. She openly bashed the film that made her famous, claiming that it painted women as shrew, humorless, and uptight, while also placing blame on Seth for writing the men as lovable, goofy, fun guys. The film still sits at an impressive 89% on Rotten Tomatoes because while she may claim that the project was problematic, the final product was a fun love story filled with some pretty solid jokes, and performances, and a great story. Seth felt betrayed by the comments as they never had a fight on set, and it never seemed like she was uncomfortable at any point. These comments, combined with some negativity towards her Grey's Anatomy writers, caused her agents to drop her as a client, and her time in Hollywood slowly came to a halt. These days she stars in the CBS comedy Our House, but it's looking like she may never return to the big screen. Number 4. Brie Larson. Brie was announced as the newest member of the Marvel Universe in 2019, starring in the film Captain Marvel as the titular superhero. At first, people were pretty excited to see what Marvel would do with this property. Captain Marvel is, after all, one of the original cosmic heroes in comic book canon, and I know I'm a nerd, leave me alone. However, when the movie was actually released, fans were pretty upset with Brie's performance. According to them, she was stale and seemed bored from start to finish. When asked about the online hate at the D23 red carpet in 2022, Brie said she's not sure if she's going to continue to play the character beyond her upcoming Captain Marvel sequel, The Marvels. She's aware of all the hate surrounding her character and defends that role by telling people that's how she was told to play the role. But it's also Brie Larson. She's always been stiff, but that's kind of part of why it's funny. Go watch Scott Pilgrim, you ninnies! Overall, she doesn't sound as terrible as some of the other entries on this list, but the way she has responded to interviewers in the past has pegged her as a Miss Marvel meanie. Number 3. Paula Abdul. In 2012, famous judge and British bad boy Simon Cowell decided to fire his fellow X Factor judge after she went on Fox News and made herself sound just a little bit like a fool. During an interview with Q13, things start out a little rocky thanks to some audio issues causing Paula to hear a station in Texas instead of the one that she was trying to talk to. When they eventually got everything up and running, Paula was just as confusing as she was with the original audio issue. The interviewers were trying to ask her about her visit to Seattle, where Simon claimed that the worst singers he has ever encountered dwell. But instead of defending the city, Paula doubled down and agreed with Simon. But it's not the statement though that landed her in the hot seat, it was the way she was speaking. Paula had always been a little bit animated in her life, using her arms a lot when speaking to people, but she was particularly slurry and she seemed like she was under the influence of something. This was just one of several interviews where Paula was noticeably woozy. Simon's actually claimed that the only reason she was invited to host on the X Factor in the first place was to see that if she would bring in the American Idol viewers. When that didn't pan out, he realized that the right move to make was just to let her go and move on to greener pastures. Of course, Paula was mad about this and confronted Simon several times, only digging herself further and further into that hole. Number 2. Tom Cruise. Matt Lauer is not just a terrible man who turned out to be a creepy creepo. He was once a popular talk show host in the early 2000s. During an interview with Tom Cruise in 2005, the topic of his scientific beliefs came up that quickly sent Tom into a rant about psychiatry. Somehow the topic got into Ritalin and pseudosciences. I don't know. Tom yelled at Matt about knowing more than him about psychiatry. Like he had some inside information that he was secretly a therapist or something. The interview came at the height of Tom's very public descent into chaotic badness, becoming very famous for his outlandish beliefs and his wish to push them onto other people. The highlight of the interview came when Cruise was asked about his previous criticism of Brooke Shields taking anti-sad time pills, to which he responded by calling her a glib. And I looked up the definition. That means fluent and voluble, but insecure and shallow. This was only one of several interviews from 2005 that we could discuss today. When he was with Katie Holmes, he was a bit of a nutcase. Just ask Oprah Winfrey. Ever since the mid-2000s, Tom's career has been mainly in the Mission Impossible movies, with only a few small roles to fill the gaps here and there. Not the Hollywood superstar that he was aiming to be. And at number 1, Lance Armstrong. 7-time Tour de France winner Lance Armstrong has gone down in history as a man who was unable to ride a bike without his chemical training wheels. In an interview with Oprah Winfrey in 2013, Lance was brought on to discuss the allegations floating around regarding his status as a Tour de France winner. Several sources claimed that Lance had taken performance-enhancing substances to win each of his races, as well as a type of transfusion involving the red life juice that flows inside all of us. Armstrong went on air and fessed up to every single thing that they were claiming he had done. However, he did deny the notion that he was some kind of a mastermind who would control his teammates and force them to join in his extracurricular activities. But amidst his admission of guilt, say that 10 times fast, there was a moment where he tried to pin the situation on his battle with cancer. He wraps it up by saying that he should have tried harder to cancel the culture rather than create more of a problem. He was stripped of all 7 Tour de France titles, and he has since lived in exile among the cycling world.
Starting off our list day in the number 10 spot, we have Jimmy Kimmel. After numerous clips of Jimmy Kimmel wearing a blackface on his 90s talk show, The Man Show resurfaced and went viral. The late night host apologized for his embarrassing portrayals of black celebrities, including NBA star Karl Malone. Jimmy would then release a statement in June 2020, and in it he would say, "I have long been reluctant to address this, as I knew doing so would be celebrated as a victory by those who equate apologies with weakness and cheer for leaders who use prejudice to divide us. The delay was a mistake. Jimmy then regretted his past decisions and went on to further his apology by saying, "There is nothing more important to me than your respect, and I apologize to those who are genuinely hurt or offended by the makeup I wore or the words I spoke." And while the apology was definitely a step forward for the star, it makes us all hope in the future he will use his voice and platform to spread love and not hate. Number 9. Wendy Williams. When Wendy Williams dedicated a July 2021 segment to a 19-year-old TikTok star who passed away, instead of paying tribute to the teen, she took a different approach. And it almost seemed like she was turning the TikTok star's passing into a joke. In the segment, she even went on to say, "I have no idea who this is. Neither does one person in the building." If things couldn't get any more worse, she then also turned to the crowd to note, "He's got more followers than me, 2.5 million," before bragging that she had more Instagram followers than him. His mother, Chanel Clark, who was actually watching the show at the time but then later turned to Philadelphia's CBS3 to share with the media outlet that she didn't appreciate Wendy's commentary when she said, "Like, as a mother, Wendy Williams, how dare you?" She then went on to note that she found the whole episode just to be rather disrespectful in general. Hey everyone, I really hope you're enjoying this video so far. If so, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you never have to miss out on what I might just cover next. And trust me, you don't want to miss out on the next video because it has some serious tea in it. Number 8. Ellen DeGeneres. When the Ellen DeGeneres show was under investigation in the summer of 2020, the world would come to learn that not just one former staff member but multiple former staff members accused Ellen of creating a toxic workplace environment. Trying to cover up all of the commotion surrounding all of the rumors that were being leaked, Ellen would then later send her team a lengthy memo where she would apologize to her former staff members for making them feel uncomfortable, and she even went on to promise that going forward, things were going to change so that everybody could feel safe while working in the studio. While many of her celebrity friends, including Katy Perry and Kevin Hart, came out to defend the star, others like Brad Garrett and Leah Thompson claimed they had heard about the negative experiences. Warner Media would then be forced to launch an investigation into the show in July of 2020, shortly before filming resumed. And after the investigation was completed, they decided it would be best to end Ellen's show. And it was truly sad as there were so many moments on the show that made us all smile and hope for the best. Number 7. Jimmy Fallon. Back in 2016, Jimmy Fallon decided he was going to sit down for an interview with the then presidential candidate Donald Trump. And with the interview failing miserably, the Tonight Show host would find himself being heavily criticized. Many viewers then started to blame the talk show host for everything from normalizing Trump enough to get him elected, or even having Trump's ratings decline. But in another reflection on the moment, even Jimmy has now admitted that he did screw up. In an interview for Awards Chatter, which is a podcast made by The Hollywood Reporter, Fallon expressed his regret about ruffling Trump's hair on the show when he said, "I'm sorry, I don't want to make anyone angry. I never do and I never will. It's all in the fun of the show. I made a mistake. I'm sorry if I made anyone mad. And looking back, I wouldn't do it again." But I mean, the way he rubbed Donald's hair really made him look like this cute little golden retriever puppy, and Donald was really enjoying the process. Number 6. Joy and Meghan McCain. When it comes to the View host, we all know they're known for butting their heads over difficult political views. However, when Joy decided to make an offhand remark about not missing Meghan McCain while she was on maternity leave, it would cause the Arizona native to leave the show behind for good after being on the show for 4 years. During a heated exchange on an episode in January 2021, Meghan would tease Joy for her remarks by saying, "You missed me so much when I was on maternity leave." Joy then quickly responded to Meghan's statement by saying, I did not miss you. 0. Later, Meghan would then sit down for an interview with Variety before her August 2021 exit, and she would explain to the media outlet that the public squabble actually led for her to have a panic attack after filming Wrap, when she said, "I couldn't stop crying, and I'm not always crying. I couldn't expose myself, so I threw up in a garbage can," before adding, Joy never even apologized for making the rude comments. Number 5. Jon Stewart and Tucker Carlson. During a 2014 appearance on Tucker Carlson's former CNN show Crossfire, the former Daily Show host Jon Stewart accused Tucker and his co-host of partisan hackery and hurting America. The interview then sparked a lot of outrage, and Jon even addressed the heated exchange just days after the Crossfire episode aired on his own Comedy Central show, when he came out to say, apparently, when you invite someone on the show called called Crossfire, you express an opinion. They don't care for that. The political debate show was then cancelled 1 year later, and Paul even went on to accuse John's appearance of being the final nail in the show's coffin. In March of 2021, John then reignited his feud with the Fox News correspondent when he made a tweet saying, "It's high time I apologize. I never should have lumped you in with that terrible, terrible person." Number 4. Alec Baldwin. At one point in time, Alec Baldwin had his own talk show. Well, that was until he made one pretty questionable move. Alec's MSNBC show would then end up being cancelled in November 2013 after the famously outspoken 30 Rock actor started to make headlines after he offended the LGBTQ+ community with a slur while he was in New York City. Feeling ashamed for everything he said after taking the time to reflect and learn about the hurt he caused, he would then come forward with an apology, and with his apology, he would say, "Words are important. I understand that, and I will choose mine with great care going forward. What I said and did this week, as I was trying to protect my family, was offensive and unacceptable." Number 3. Whoopi Goldberg. So we all know Whoopi Goldberg's show has always been pretty controversial, but I think we were all shocked after she made some pretty concerning comments about history. Because the star made some hurtful anti-Semitic remarks and directed them towards the Jewish community. Kim Godwin, the president at ABC, would then come forward in a statement and say, "Effective immediately. I am suspending Whoopi Goldberg for 2 weeks for her wrong and hurtful comment." While Whoopi has apologized, I've asked her to take the time to reflect and learn about the impact of her comment. The entire ABC News organization stands in solidarity with our Jewish colleagues, friends, family, and communities. Hours after the incident, the Oscar winner also apologized for her remarks during an appearance on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and she would say it upset a lot of people, which was never ever my intention. She then later headed to her Twitter to also issue another formal apology. Number 2. Sharon Osbourne. The talk show host Sharon Osbourne once made headlines back in November 2013 when she slammed all the ladies on the show after she made an appearance on the Arsenio Hall show. Even though the star tried to claim that she was actually a really big fan of Barbara Walters and that she even idolizes her for the rest of the hosts on The View, she went on to throw some major shade at them when she pretty much said they could all go F themselves. After being criticized by fans, Sharon would then come out to apologize for her remarks, and she would tell all her fans she didn't want to come off as mean as she was, and that she was only trying to be funny. Then she went on to note that she actually had a lot of respect for all women, and that she wasn't really responsible for anything she says, as she's just a loose cannon. But I mean, sometimes funny is just not funny. Number 1. Megyn Kelly. So back in October of 2018, Megyn Kelly would come under fire after her name started to hit the headlines, after the star tried to defend why she was wearing black face makeup while she was celebrating Halloween. Instead of issuing an apology, Megyn would head to her morning show to talk about the incident, and during the episode she would say, "When I was a kid, it was okay, just as long as you were dressing as a character." Megyn would then be forced to apologize in an email to her staff members, and later she even read a similar statement on air to apologize to all of the viewers on her show and her fans and to the United States. In the end, US would actually end up confirming 2 days later on that NBC actually canceled the Megyn Kelly Today in the wake of all the controversy.
Number 10. Zac Efron. Zac rose to fame as a Disney darling, playing the leading role of Troy Bolton in the popular High School Musical series. Since his Disney days, Zac has lent his face and voice to several projects, but the red carpet event that we're talking about today was for the animated Dr. Seuss movie The Lorax, which Zac, who voiced the main character of the film, was walking the red carpet when he suddenly handed his assistant something from his pocket. As he handed them the product, something fell out of his pocket and onto the carpet. Now that something is a word that I can't say online. Let's just call them love tubes. Love tubes. I like that. Zac's love tube wrapper was flat on the carpet right there for the world to see. He quickly picked it up, but the damage had already been done. In the first interview following this incident, the interviewer asked Zac if there was anything unplanned that had happened. He then explained that this was a complete accident. There was no pre-show pocket check or anything that could have prevented it. Well, Illumination did not like that excuse, and they also didn't like their main star being associated with such an adult product. So, when the plans for a Lorax sequel were brought to the studios, Zach's name was left out and replaced by somebody else. I guess whoever they picked wasn't famous enough though, as the project was ultimately shelved by the studio, and thankfully Zach found work somewhere else. In Baywatch. Number 9. Taylor Swift. If there is one thing that should be known about Taylor Swift, it's that she can end an entire career with one single conversation. In 2015, Taylor was on the red carpet for the Grammy Awards when she was interviewed by a woman from Entertainment Tonight. The interviewer started the interview by asking her cameraman to pan up and down and literally checking her out as this massive camera just followed her. You know, that's not weird at all. After going along with the bit for a bit and telling the camera about her dress, the woman who was interviewing her said that she honestly just wanted a shot of Taylor's legs because she said before the show that Taylor is going to be going home with more than a trophy. Maybe a man. Ooh. Taylor didn't appreciate that comment or that assumption. She did not laugh and proceeded to tell her that she would be going home with no men, just hanging out with her friends and then home to her cats. While the majority of the interview went well, the interviewers were reprimanded behind the scenes by Taylor herself. The news of Taylor's dislike for them made its way up to the top, where the ET executives decided to keep him off the red carpet from now on. Keep your creepy camera gestures to yourself, lady. Number 8. Rachel Zegler. Rachel Zegler's comments about the upcoming live-action Snow White remake could have a huge impact on ticket sales, according to brand experts. The 22-year-old actress has received plenty of backlash after she admitted that she hated the original 1937 movie and branded the storyline as weird, while referring to the Prince character as a straight-up stalker. The backlash occurred after several videos of Rachel speaking negatively about the original film in various interviews last year resurfacing online, where when she spoke about her version of the character, she said that she is not going to be saved by the prince and that she is not going to be dreaming about true love. As well as being labeled a fake feminist, some critics have accused Rachel of gaslighting, and one marketing consultant has warned that Disney will need to be very careful with how they have portrayed Snow White. Snow White has already been suffering from lots of backlash well before Rachel made her comments. Peter Dinklage spoke out about Disney not using true dwarf actors for the new film, instead opting to use heavy CGI on Hollywood elites. Rachel's role as Snow White is in the air as of filming this video, because thanks to her comments, the studio is rethinking this situation. While the film is set to release in March of next year, the writer's strike may be the exact moment that the studio needs to recast and rewrite its oldest character. Number 7. Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey is known for his hilarious personality on and off screen, but he gave Kat Sadler from E! News and Daily Pop a very awkward interview on the red carpet at Harper Bazaar's party in 2017. The interaction started with Jim slowly circling Kat as she attempts to express her confusion and excitement. Jim Carrey was at a Fashion Week event. Was the man known for being an incredible artist, bringing his talent to the fashion world? No, he was just really mad about stuff. By 2017, Jim had made a name for himself as an oddly serious man who tended to venture into the realm of energies and universal concepts when getting into deep conversations. He started the conversation with, "This is meaningless." And then he continued to say that he wanted to find the most meaningless thing that he could attend that evening. The event was a celebration of icons and celebrities, according to Kat, to which Jim said he did not agree, as in he didn't agree with the concept of icons. He continued to give a small speech about not believing that people truly exist, and that we are all just a field of energy, and that peace lies beyond personality, man. The entire time this interview is taking place, Kat is visibly uncomfortable, just counting down to the moment that Jim says something funny or even remotely related to fashion. Instead, he just shares his thoughts, tells her that she has a nice fragrance, and walks away. While Jim's career had already started to slow down at that point, the clip became viral and studios were wondering if he was going to be a good fit for anything anymore. Many scripts with his name on them were rewritten or simply just kept to themselves, right up until 2020 when he made a small comeback in the surprisingly fun Sonic the Hedgehog movie. Number 6. Will Smith. That's right, Will Smith is on this list for hitting somebody, and it's not Chris Rock. Today we're talking about an incident on the red carpet that left one paparazzo with a massive red mark on his face and a fired sign stamped on his forehead. Will was walking the red carpet giving people interviews when a Ukrainian comedian named Vitaly Sejik approached him, a man who is unfortunately world famous for being an absolutely disgusting person towards celebrities. He pretended to be a reporter and began interviewing Will Smith. He suddenly pulled Will towards him and tried to kiss him on his cheeks and mouth. Well, Will obviously obviously did not like that and shoved him back and gave him a little love tap. Just a little backhand to the face. A team of security following Mr. Smith picked this guy up and carried him away like a little toddler that he was. Who knew Will was practicing for his Oscar slaps all the way back then? Cedric was finally reprimanded for his actions, and he was actually made to pay a hefty fine for attempting to force himself on Will Smith. Needless to say, that guy works for himself now. Number 5. Hugh Grant. In 2013, the world was gifted with an awkward interview between model Ashley Graham and Dungeons & Dragons star Hugh Grant. Ashley was trying her best to give a good interview and asked Hugh the hard-hitting questions, like who was he wearing? Was he excited to be there? Did he hope anyone he knew won? You know, good old generic questions they tell you to ask on the first day of work. Hugh was not budging, to the point where she just kinda gave up and let him loose. One of her last questions to Hugh was regarding his cameo in the Netflix film Glass Onion, which he said was barely a full day on set. The incident sparked a ton of backlash, mainly aimed at Hugh for making Ashley's job more and more difficult. But then the narrative switched to, why wasn't she asking him better questions? ABC decided to give the hosting gig to somebody else for next year's Oscars, and it's looking like she won't be making any more interview appearances anytime soon. Number 4. Amy Schumer. In the mid-2010s, comedian Amy Schumer was named one of Time magazine's top 100 most influential people and was made to attend a red carpet event to celebrate with her fellow influencers, two of whom were Kanye West and Kim Kardashian. Now, while discussing the incident on the Graham Norton show, she revealed that there was a planned prank on Kim and Ye. Her goal was to get them to crack and smile and get some good fun pics for the event, but Kim and Kanye did not find this situation funny and continued to walk past her as she fell in front of them. Like she just followed forward trying to make a nice little thing out of it. While the moment was meant to create a fun scene, it instead made Amy look like she had a grudge towards Kim and Kanye. While not an interview, the incident on the red carpet did force Comedy Central to postpone a season of her show until things were sorted out with Kim. It turned out that not only did Kim not care, but she did end up finding the incident kind of funny in the end, with these two apparently now being close friends, and Amy even made a cameo on Kim's new reality series, The Kardashians. Number 3. Rashida Jones. The star of comedy giants like The Office and Parks and Rec is an expert at evading uncomfortable and just strange questions. During the Screen Actors Guild Awards in 2015, she was being interviewed by TNT's Danielle Dembski when the actress was told she was very tanned, while Rashida replied with a small pause and then told the reporter she was ethnic, so, you know, duh. Danielle burst into laughter before ignoring the dumb question and moving on, but TNT did not forget. Her producers made it very clear that she needed to do more research before making comments or asking questions to anyone on the carpet. According to TNT, she was let go after the meeting went south and Danielle didn't realize what she had done wrong. Gee, let me think. Number 2. Silka Sibin. While attending the Dutch premiere of his rom-com Music in the Lyrics, Hugh Grant, making another appearance, got the shock of a lifetime after a fan got a little bit too excited and took their admiration to a whole new level. Television journalist Silka Sibin approached Grant and he thought it was an interview, but then she handcuffed herself to him. For about 10 minutes, the patient but frustrated Grant was just waiting and watched as several onlookers started snapping pictures left and right. After the fire department finally released them, Sibin was taken by police. And while this may have seemed like your average Hollywood interaction, the news station that she worked for did not appreciate this gag and she was fired immediately. And at number 1, Ryan Seacrest. Ryan was the man with the mic for a very long time, hosting not only talk shows, but reality game shows as well. Eventually though, he found a nice comfy gig interviewing celebrities on and off the red carpet. In 2018, things changed drastically after allegations of misconduct were brought forward by a former female employee named Susie Hardy. Susie was his personal hairstylist and the job was perfect for a very long time. But according to her, Ryan became very aggressive on several occasions, claiming that the only reason she never said anything was fear that she may lose the financial stability that the job had provided for herself and her daughter. In 2013, the situation finally ended when she expressed her concerns to someone at Human Resources and her employment was terminated. Now, while this was happening, Ryan was still employed as a host and a presenter, so he took to the red carpet that year to interview celebrities and he was met with cold shoulders and sarcastic comments. After the red carpet event, the decision was made to put Ryan on hold for a while until the the investigation into the allegations were complete. 3 months later, they concluded that there was insufficient evidence to prove the claims and Ryan got reinstated. I'm not sure why a single mom would lie about something like that. I'm pretty sure Ryan's hiding some shady stuff, but who knows for sure? Do you?
Coming at number 10 today, we have Lea Michele. It's fair to say that Lea Michele is a celebrity whose reputation precedes her. The star who shot to fame after landing the lead role as Rachel Berry in Glee back in 2009, and since she's been the center of several scandals. Recently, during her appearance on The Tonight Show, after the show aired, she would spark some fresh backlash after she could be seen moving Sadie Sink out of the way so she could take center stage. When Lea was announced on the show, she would walk onto the stage and she would briefly touch Sadie's arm before reaching across to shake Jimmy's hand. Even though Trake was closer to her than Jimmy, she stepped forward to shake his hand and awkwardly stood in front of Sadie until Sadie decided to move aside to give Lea her spot. In addition, soon after the introductions, Jimmy told Sadie to take a seat on the right of him and Lea to the left, and Sadie had to take a step back to accommodate Lea before crossing over to the stage so she could get to her designated spot. The situation did not go unnoticed, as soon fans would start to praise Sadie for being humble by the way she reacted to Lea's disrespectful and immature attitude. Number 9, Emma Roberts. Back in 2017, podcast host Jane Hunt and Robert Ackerman sparked a viral rumor that actor Lea Michele can't read or write. Since the podcast, fans have been pointing out moments that prove the actress couldn't read, and up until now it's pretty much just been a huge speculation. However, during an episode of Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen, Emma Roberts decided to play coy about whether her friend Lea Michele could read, and by doing so, she would reveal that the rumors are actually true. During the interview, Andy Cohen would say to Emma that the biggest misconception people have about Lea Michele is that she can't read. Instead of shutting down the rumor, Emma decided to skirt around the question with a joke and said, "Well, we've not been in a book club together." While Michelle did try to confirm in a tweet back in 2018 that she can actually read, Emma's joke would definitely prove otherwise. Even though Emma did try to keep things sweet and try to offer some sweet support to her friend by shouting out her Broadway show, the part about Lea not being able to read definitely didn't go unnoticed. Hey my little peaches, are you liking this video so far? So don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Coming in number 8, we have Whoopi Goldberg. 2022 was filled with controversy for Whoopi Goldberg as she continues to rebuild her image in the spotlight. It appears that the crew at the ABC daytime favorite show has appeared to be lending a helping hand towards the star. On January 4th, joined by her former talk show members on an episode on The View, she took the spot of the moderator on the show, meaning she was in charge of teeing up links and starting debates and conversations. But Whoopi's prominence on the show didn't stop there, as an insider would soon reveal that the crowd was also encouraged to cheer her on the loudest. As the crowd was warmed up by comedian Regina DeSico, specifically, she told everyone to give a loud applause to Whoopi and then continue clapping for the other host. It seemed like the crew wanted Whoopi to get a standing ovation to make her feel like she was the star of the show. She also carried herself as if she had all the authority on the show, and she even was seen talking over the other co-hosts and interrupting them, which isn't exactly a great way to start her comeback. But if someone has to encourage the crowd to cheer for you the loudest, it's a pretty clear sign that your time in the industry is almost up. Number 7, Chris Harrison. Chris Harrison's time away from the Bachelor franchise has really started to take a toll on him. More than a year after he defended a contestant's previous racist behavior in an infamous extra interview, the TV personality has finally addressed all the controversy in a debut episode of the most dramatic podcast ever. In the episode, he would say, "I think I need time to figure out what I want to say. How I felt that mistake doesn't reflect who I am or what I stand for." While his extra comment marked the beginning of his Bachelor downfall, Chris has been left feeling heartbroken, gutted, and embarrassed, and he stated that the backlash took a toll in more than one way. In the podcast, Chris would also state that his comments made him feel sick and worry about his children, loved ones, and family, and since he decided to step down from his role on The Bachelor, he hasn't been able to watch the show, but he has been keeping an eye on the ratings and believes believes the show is declining in ratings because he's no longer on the show, and that hurts him a bit. Number 6, Sam Smith. Rumor has it that Adele and Sam Smith may have more in common than just their heavenly voices, as fans are speculating that they are actually the same person. During an episode of The Drew Barrymore Show, Sam would reveal the craziest rumor they've ever heard about themselves, and it was that they were actually secretly the Hello singer in drag. In the episode, Sam would say, "Everyone seems to think that I'm Adele in drag because we've never been in the same room together. And if you slow down her voice, it sounds maybe a bit like mine. So people think we're the same person and I'm just in drag right now." While some fans in the past have made theories on social media, like one person tweeting in 2018, "Anyone notice Adele isn't at the Grammys this year?" It's because Adele and Sam Smith are the same person and you never see them both in the same place at the same time. Others have even begun to mock the singer on Twitter, suggesting Sam made up the rumor, with one person tweeting, "Sam Smith says the craziest rumor they've heard about themselves is that they're secretly Adele in drag. Never heard that one before." And honestly, wherever the rumor stemmed from, someone definitely owes Adele an apology for this one. Number 5, James Corden. On January 2nd, 2023, James Corden appeared on The Drew Barrymore Show, and James would be asked why he was leaving the CBS talk show after what would be 8 years on air. James would then recall a story from 2 summers ago when he was shooting his Amazon Prime video series Mammals. In an interaction with his son Max, who was now 10 at the time, it made him realize that he wanted to spend more summers with his son because he only had 6 more left. While James said he didn't want to cancel the show, he would then blame the situation on his son. However, the timing of him deciding to leave his show just seems more like a career move and reputation thing rather than a reason to spend more time with his son and family, because since entering into the spotlight, James has been a part of several controversies, such as back in October, the comedian's reputation took a huge hit after Keith McNally banned James from his restaurant in New York City and labeled him as a tying cretin of a man who was the most abusive customer he has ever seen, after James was caught yelling at a server who got his wife's egg yolk omelet wrong. Number 4, Chelsea Handler. While Chelsea didn't seem to end her career this year on a talk show, she did decide it was a good idea to mock several huge controversial topics from last year during her monologue at the 2023 Critics' Choice Awards. While the star went on to reference things like the Don't Worry Darling press tour, the Roe vs. Wade Supreme Court overturning. When announcing the cast of The Bear and that they were at the ceremony, Chelsea would then joke about the drama surrounding James Corden from a New York restaurant and how he showed us working in the restaurant industry is miserable. Chelsea then went on to mention that the controversial celebrity diet culture is just insane, and while Chelsea was trying to find a way to have a great time and make everyone feel comfortable, welcomed, and feel like they belonged and to be at the show, she definitely took things a little too far, and all she did was put herself into a little bit of a hole that's going to be difficult to climb out of to save her reputation and career. And not to mention, just a couple of days before, she would make an appearance on The Tonight Show where she would confess that she didn't realize that the sun and the moon weren't the same thing until she was 40. Yeah, let that one sink in. Number 3, Eddie Murphy. The original script for Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home originally had a large role written specifically for Eddie Murphy, who at the time was a box office star coming off the heels of a successful film, Beverly Hills Cops. And additionally, Eddie was interested in appearing in the movie as he was a big Star Trek fan. He even met with the producer, Harvey Benner, and director, Leonard Nimoy, to discuss the part, which he was ultimately decided to not take. When he turned down the role, he originally said it was because he thought making the movie Golden Child would be a better fit for his career, but then recently on his appearance on Jimmy Kimmel Live, he would offer up another explanation when he said, "Yeah, you know which one it is. It's the one where they go to San Francisco and they get the whales. I was going to be in that one. I met with them. They met when they got to San Francisco, and I said no. I want to go beam up and be on the ship, so I didn't do it." This definitely has some die-hard Star Trek fans screaming as they would have done anything to play this part in the film, and Eddie just turned it down because he wouldn't be beamed up into the ship. Number 2, Prince Harry. On January 8th, Prince Harry made his very first TV appearance since his highly anticipated memoir Spare was leaked. In a pre-recorded interview with the British anchor Tom Bradby, Harry would address some of the most explosive claims in his book that included his confession to taking substances and his fractured relationship with his family. While the star said he was grateful to have the chance to tell his story in his memory and said he'd still be part of the royal family, he wouldn't have had the opportunity to share this story. Many fans of the royal family have stated that Prince Harry definitely should have kept this book hidden in the closet with his dirty laundry, as he and Meghan have been slammed by newspaper columns and the media for a slew of lies that have caused them to mock the royal family as they try to move on and claim to live their own lives. Which has left us all to wonder when this is all just going to stop. Family feuds happen and it's normal. What's not normal is that you bring your family drama to the light and try to claim they wronged you without bringing any key facts to your story. Like, how do we know it's true at this point? And coming in number 1 today, we have Piers Morgan. Seems like Piers Morgan doesn't know how to stay out of the hot seat, as recently he would find himself surrounded by controversy once again, as this time he chose to go against the Queen of Pop after Madonna posted a video announcing her next tour. Morgan on his Talk TV show then said that Madonna, who is 64 years old, is a hot mess, and he even went out of his way to express that she should be put out of the pasture. He also took the opportunity to criticize the fact that she still tries to be a foxy kitten even though she's over 60. After his show, he then decided to bring his rant to Twitter, where he said he thinks Madonna has become the biggest cringe-making fiasco in the entertainment world. Fans definitely weren't happy with Morgan's words, and many just continue to call him out on his insensitive, misogynistic, and even labeled him as a cruel person for his words.
Number 10. Clive Anderson. It's important to note that while all late night hosts do work hard to remember what projects every single one of their guests is promoting, they can easily get mixed up from time to time, and that's exactly what brought forth one of the most awkward encounters in UK TV history. When the Bee Gees appeared on Clive Anderson's All Talk in 1997, they grew so tired of his continuous jokes about their music that they infamously just got up and walked off set. As a poor attempt at humor, the host made remarks about the group's appearance and said that he thought the band were sisters rather than brothers, and that only his dog loves their high-pitched music. But the big turning point came when Anderson said that the band will always be Les Tossers to me, and you could literally see Barry Gibb's face begin to darken. To make matters worse, when the singer tried to talk about a song that he had written earlier in his career, saying he had forgotten that one. Clearly not loving the atmosphere, Barry became sarcastic and said, "We're getting on like a storm, aren't we, Clive?" before getting up on his feet and cursing at the host. He got up and left, and after even more awkwardness, the other two eventually did the same. Number 9. Katie Couric. In 2014, the television personality invited trans model Carmen Carrera to appear on her talk show Katie. After Carmen discussed her modeling career, Couric began asking her really invasive questions about her transition, like, was the whole process painful physically for you? And your private parts are different now, aren't they? As the questions were becoming increasingly personal and insensitive, Carmen finally decided to say something. Quote, "I don't want to talk about it because it's really personal. I'd rather talk about my modeling stuff. I'd rather talk about being in W and maybe being in Italian Vogue and doing fun stuff and showing people that after the transition, there's still life to live." It was actually a great opportunity for Carmen to demonstrate that she is more than her transition, and that being trans is not the most interesting thing about her. For her part, Couric received some pretty intense backlash for her line of questioning, especially when Orange is the New Black star Laverne Cox appeared on the show and told the host that she was objectifying Carmen. It wasn't until 2017 that Couric revealed that she had the opportunity to cut the segment out of the interview altogether, but decided to keep it in as an educational moment for her audience. So she definitely learned something from the experience. Number 8. Jessica Simpson. Of all the celebrity talk show fails, this one is easily one of the messiest and the hardest to watch. When the singer appeared on the Ellen DeGeneres show in 2017, it quickly became clear that she had had one too many. Jessica slurred her words and fumbled over a range of topics, including the length of her marriage to Eric Johnson, which she said she couldn't remember, and then started talking about contraception, saying, "We got an IUD, nothing's going to get into that uterus." And when Ellen asked her about whether she was expanding her billion-dollar business, Jessica started rambling about vitamins and B12 energy. When asked if she's making more music, she claimed that she is, but she's struggled to remember just how many songs she actually has. Quote, "I probably have about 38 or maybe 36 or 39, and Ellen said bluntly, you don't have 38 songs." It really wasn't until 2020 that the singer addressed the incident in her tell-all memoir called Open Book, when she admitted to having drank before going on air. She claims that she's still so embarrassed by her behavior that she can't bring herself to watch the interview almost 3 years later because it was a weak moment for her and she said she wasn't in the right place. But in recent years, she seems to be doing a whole lot better. Number 7. Harry Belafonte. This one is truly hilarious. The singer appeared on Eyewitness News to promote a documentary made about himself named Sing Your Song. But what viewers got out of the interview was a laugh, all because Harry was fast asleep when the anchor tried to speak with him. Eventually, the newscaster Layla Santiago ended up shouting at him, saying, "This is your wake-up call. He's meditating, he's taking a little nap," which caused all 3 newscasters on the show to erupt in laughter. His publicist later told the station that it was a technical glitch and that his earpiece wasn't working, so he decided to take the time to meditate before the interview. His publicist added that Mr. Belafonte is 84 years young, but sharper and more awake than most who have been interviewing him. Maybe the world would be a better place if more people took a moment to meditate. But in Belafonte's defense, it was probably pretty early in the morning during a time of filming. Whatever happened, the clip, which was from 10 years ago, only recently went viral after it was used to create a deepfake footage of President Biden dozing off while being live on air. Number 6. Dua Lipa. At first, the interview seemed to be going really well until some awkward questions were asked by Dua Lipa that made everyone watching pretty uncomfortable. During an episode of The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, Dua was guest hosting and she accidentally referred to Gwen Stefani's partner at the time, Blake Shelton, as her husband when they were not married. She started off the friendly conversation by saying, "So I heard that you've been spending quarantine with your husband Blake Shelton at the ranch in Oklahoma. Who else was with you? How was that?" But after a little silence, Gwen just replied by saying, "Well, he's not my husband, but that sounded cool when you said that." But what really fixed this moment is the fact that after 5 years together, Gwen Stefani and Blake Shelton did go on to get married. What's even funnier is that she posted about the engagement on Instagram, and Dua Lipa actually commented on the news by referencing the cringy moment and wrote, "I guess our little interview aged well. Congratulations, best news." But whether or not Jimmy Fallon regretted having her on as a guest judge is something that still remains to be seen. Number 5. Katy Perry. Katy Perry's 2017 interview with Ellen DeGeneres is a disaster from start to finish, and they're both partially to blame, although for different reasons. Things grew awkward really fast when Ellen forgot that Katy had once been married to Russell Brand. During a game of Will You Parry Me, a game where the singer was asked which celebrity crush she found more attractive, Katy said, "Do I have to get married again?" After a pause, Ellen looked genuinely confused and she just said, "You are not married?" To which Katy said, "I was, when I was 25. Remember you gave me some wedding gifts on the show?" When the moment was becoming a little too embarrassing for the singer, she began making scissor motions, telling Ellen to cut this part of the interview out. But it only got worse from then on as Ellen launched into the game, which made a slightly unhinged Katy pick between Harry Styles, Chris Martin, and Leonardo DiCaprio. But she got a little too honest and said, "What if I've already kissed a bunch of these people?" The whole episode led to speculations that Katy was tipsy during filming, but we'll never really know the truth. Number 4. Kourtney Kardashian. For the Keeping Up with the Kardashian star, one of the biggest live TV fails came with her interview in 2016, just weeks after Kim Kardashian's horrific Paris robbery ordeal. Shortly afterwards, Kourtney appeared on Australian program The Today Show to talk about her latest project, before the hosts attempted to turn the conversation towards Kim. Quote, "We're very sympathetic and horrified, so we were wondering, how is everyone going? How is Kim doing?" Kourtney looked really frustrated and just said, before looking at somebody else in the room, most likely her publicist. An awkward silence ensued as her whole face went blank and she looked beyond the camera, muttering something under her breath about having someone come in. The presenters were confused as well, before they realized what was going on. David Campbell asked, "Hello, Kourtney, have we lost you?" Before the silence became unbearable and Kardashian's face disappeared off screen. The host became frustrated at the response and insisted that Kourtney should have just said that her sister was fine. To this day, her response has fans divided over whether or not it was even appropriate. And number 3. Ellen DeGeneres. Celine Dion was not the least bit amused when she went on The Ellen Show in 2007 and got criticized for the fact that her son had long hair. Trying to be funny, Ellen outright told Celine that she was forgetting to cut her son's hair, then showed a photo of the cute little boy with shoulder-length hair. The issue is that Celine has probably gotten that same line from countless other people and was very tired of hearing about it. Ellen did not expect her to take the question to heart the way she did, and suddenly the tension in the room was so thick that you could cut it with a knife. Celine then began defending the length of her child's hair, asking Ellen if she had a problem with it. Quote, "Some people shave the head of their children and people say, oh, isn't that terrible? Well, I don't even cut my son's hair, and they say, oh my gosh, when is she going to cut her son's hair, you know? Whatever I do, I won't please anyone." She then explained that it was her son who made his own decision to keep his hair long, but Ellen had already sensed that she had made a mistake and swiftly changed the topic to Celine's music career after the uncomfortable moment. Number 2, David Letterman. Even though Lindsay Lohan visited The Late Show in 2013 with the intention of promoting Scary Movie 5, David Letterman spent the majority of the interview talking about the star's forthcoming return to rehab. This one was really bad because as soon as she sat down, Letterman said the actress looked remarkably well in a condescending tone. He then began asking invasive questions about whether or not Lohan steals things and manages her money responsibly. Despite all of her attempts to change the topic of conversation, the host kept going back to the question of rehab, like when was she gonna go, why was she going, and how long she planned to stay there. Eventually, the actress became frustrated and just said that they didn't discuss this in the pre-interview, while asking Letterman to focus on the positive. But even though she was clearly uncomfortable, he once again brought it up, and so by the end of the conversation, Lohan was literally in tears. The interview resurfaced online last year and has since sparked a wave of backlash against the veteran talk show host, who, in all fairness, has a pretty problematic history when it comes to making women uncomfortable on his show. Number 1, Cardi B. This one really takes the cake. On the after show of Love and Hip Hop New York, host Nina Parker asked cast member Asia Davies a question about her relationship with fellow co-star and ex-Swift, but before Asia could respond, Cardi sent a heel flying in Asia's direction, a signature move that we all know way too well. Cardi then demanded that Asia admit that she had an issue with her. Quote, "You judged me because I was a stripper, say the truth." It was immediately clear why the two had been positioned so far away. After trash talking her for a little bit, the artist was ready to throw down again with Asia. In fact, Cardi needed a whole team to keep her from laying hands on her rival. But the rapper may have been right in the situation because Swift admitted that Asia did not respect Cardi because of her past. He allegedly had to explain to her several times that she was no longer a stripper, and she's moved on from that and is making music now. So when Asia refused to answer the question about why she didn't give Cardi a chance, her rival went into full attack mode. And what ensued is the televised disaster that you can still watch to this day. Number 10, Beyonce. Wendy Williams once sent her fans on a frenzy after she decided to mock the way Beyonce spoke in her HBO documentary Life is But a Dream. Taking to the Wendy Williams show, what started off to be a sweet moment when Williams gushed over the star's music. It quickly turned sour after things got a little awkward when the audience started to turn on her after she said Beyonce couldn't talk. During the episode, Wendy would say, "I am a Beyonce fan. I'm going to be watching this documentary even if she doesn't introduce us to new stuff. I'm watching because fortunately, one of the TVs in our kitchen has closed captions, so I'll be able to understand what she says. You know, Beyonce can't talk. Beyonce sounds like she has a 5th grade education. She can't talk." When the audience started to turn against Wendy, she would then continue on with her rant by saying, "Excuse me, I just said I was a fan, but we have to call a spade a spade. I mean, honestly, and we really have to do the closed captioning just for times like that." Number 9, Ariana Grande. In 2015, Wendy would land herself in hot water with a number of Ariana Grande's fans after she made a few controversial comments about her. The talk show host found herself on the rampant end of criticism after she seemingly body shamed the singer on the Wendy Williams show. The audience initially laughed after the television personality star said, "She's 21, she'll forever look 12. Things would soon take a sharp turn when she said, "And I don't mean that in a good way. It's nice to look younger than you are, but when you look too young and then you're short, well, she's only 4'11". I don't look at her as like a woman." Her comments would soon prompt the hashtag #CancelWendyWilliams to trend on Twitter, and fans of Ariana band together to try and get her show taken off the air. And even Miley Cyrus would take to the comments and say, standing up for Ariana Grande by using the hashtag #CancelWendyWilliams show is not petty. It is showing people like Wendy Williams that it is not okay for people to be belittled in any way. We all know that Ariana will never say something back to Wendy for fear of it becoming another tabloid headline. So we are here to stand up for the one we love, and we will never back down. Hey guys, are you liking this video so far? If so, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Number 8, TMZ. One thing about Wendy is that she never tippy toes around anything. So when she sat down with TMZ to talk about her ongoing medical struggles and starting a new career, she sparked some major concern among her fans. When the star joined TMZ for a live interview, she would tell the outlet why she was turning her back on TV, and instead choosing refusing to produce her own podcast, and for her, it really came down to time and money. Things then took a bizarre turn when she made a bizarre revelation. She shared what her battle with lymphedema was like, having no issue holding up her foot to reveal just how swollen it was from the condition. She would go on to tell viewers that she can only feel about 5% of her feet, but she also explained how she wasn't going to let it slow her down. But from her slurred speech to her shifty eyes, Wendy appeared as though she was trying almost too hard to concentrate on what she was trying to say. At one point, she was just unknowingly repeating and even explaining the word podcast. It was pretty concerning. Number 7. CNN. In an interview back in 2022, Wendy would admit that she was reluctant to remotely film The Wendy Williams Show after watching other TV hosts work from their home. In an interview with CNN, Wendy would say that her competitors at home look disgusting, before she explained to the news outlet that she eventually gave in and decided to film at her apartment after having a few conversations with her production team. At first, not having a live studio audience felt weird, but then she remembered her years working as a radio personality. She said, "I've so enjoyed that, but it is much easier for me as a host to be here at home with no audience, because it's always been about description. You know, I've been a radio host longer than I've been a TV host, so yes, right, thank God for the radio." But the fact that she said other TV hosts look disgusting when compared to her working at home was just a little too far. Number 6. Alyssa Milano. Alyssa Milano once had a disagreement over how women choose to feed their young ones in public. After the outspoken breastfeeding advocate had a dispute with the TV host on Wendy's show, Wendy confessed to her that she did not share her views on breastfeeding in public. She said, "I don't need to see that." She then went on to say that she would personally take her kid to the car before allowing people to see her feed them in public. She said, "I just don't want to." Alyssa then suggested that society thinks too much of this when it comes to things like this, as it only happens during a particular amount of time. Alyssa then drew big applause from the audience after she went on to close the discussion and said, "You're lucky the baby is not here. I'd whip them out and feed him right on your show." She went on to note that breastfeeding is an amazing process and that women are the most perfect machines ever made. Number 5. Michael Jackson. The Leaving Neverland documentary highlighted two people's stories when it came to Michael Jackson making unwelcome advances on them. It left fans, supporters, and fellow celebrities on opposite sides of the fence. Back in 2019, Wendy would even weigh in on the issue when she offered up her opinions on the 4-hour documentary, denouncing all the claims that had been made on her talk show. When introducing the hot topic to her audience members, Wendy didn't bite her tongue. She went on to share her thoughts. With Michael being accused of engaging in intimate relationships with people much younger than him, the radio host went on to reveal that she believes these revived accusations were brought into play for an ulterior motive. She said, "I do believe that this is a money grab for families, but with the topic being such a sensitive issue, many fans called her out as it just shouldn't have been spoken on TV. And if you didn't see what she said, please go and look it up because it was honestly just too gross to hear." Number 4. Marcus Scribner. Back in 2018, Wendy decided to go straight for the birds and the bees conversation when she sat down with actor Marcus Scribner, who is known for his role on the hit show Blackish. With Marcus being a relatively private person, it was rumored that he was in a relationship in 2020, and he was not one to give away much about his personal life. Marcus appeared as if he didn't want to share any details about the mystery woman in his life, but many fans were curious to know all the details about everyone he is dating. Fortunately for fans, Marcus would briefly touch on the topic when he made an appearance on the Wendy Williams Show. He told Wendy, "Currently, it's complicated. We've got stuff going on. Yeah, I'll leave it at that." He then refused to add any details, even after Wendy asked him if he has ever had a bird and the bee intimacy level with anyone. Feeling uncomfortable by her question, Marcus would go on to say, "Wendy is trying to hit me with the difficult questions. I'll leave it a mystery for the audience. However, that's just a creepy question for any 50-year-old to ask an 18-year-old. Number 3. Drea Michelle. When Drea made an appearance on Wendy's show, she became a hot topic in the tabloids, as Drea really handled all of Wendy's digs like a champ. And I personally would put Wendy in her place if she ever asked me some of the questions that she asked Drea. In the interview, she would pretty much imply that Drea gets around when she went on to ask her, "How many basketball players have you been with?" Wendy then tried to embarrass her even further in an attempt to shame her for her intimate choices. She turned to the audience and said, "If you don't watch the show, that seems like Wendy you're crazy, but she's been this girl that's gotten around." Dre would then clear up the rumors by saying it's been over 3 years since she's dated any basketball players, and that she wasn't afraid of her past as anything you do in your past can be cleaned up. Number 2. Dionne Warwick. In December of 2020, Wendy would come under fire after she made fun of Dionne Warwick. The star, who had been tweeting about artist stage names, would say that she has never been involved in the Twitter sphere. Instead, she watches TV, sings songs, read books, socializes, or moisturizes her hair. Before going on to say, I think if you're a person of a particular age, you need to be on social media and you need to get down sometimes and talk to these kids. Not to talk to them, but you really do need someone young in your family just to make sure that you're coming off correct. She then responded to Wendy's statement on Twitter, saying, a friend alerted me that Wendy Williams was spending a lot of not nice time speaking to me. I tuned into her show to catch the last few minutes of her speaking about me, and as in the past, she seems not to be able to speak without making malicious comments. My hope is that my name will refrain from being spoken or thought of by her, as this conversation was held a few years ago, letting her know that there would not be any need for her to say my name. I don't believe anyone has to be mean to get noticed. And coming in at number 1, Keke Palmer. The actress is well known for being outspoken, and that's why we love her. So when Wendy tried to discuss the incident that surrounds Keke and Trey's songs, it would prompt her to tell Williams directly that she disagreed with how the host presented the story. After stopping by on the talk show to promote her new book, Keke would bring up the incident with Williams while putting her on blast for how she chose to defend songs. She went on to say, I will say, Wendy, I would have loved to turn on your show and see you be a little more compassionate and a little less accusatory. After a bit more awkward conversation, Keke went on to remind her that it matters how hosts and other late night profile figures speak about certain issues, and said it wasn't right to tell girls it was okay for them to feel weird and awkward in situations, and that people need to start saying no when things don't feel right, because it's okay to say no.